Beth has given us the finger, and that means it's time for Facebook Live at Big O Tires in Stanley, Kansas. We're at the Big O at 151st and 69 Highway. Come on down, say hi to us. Get your tires rotated.
Give us the finger.
Give us the finger as well. The regular crew is here. To my left, Vahe Gregorian, Sam Mellinger to my right, and on the far right, Sam McDowell. We cover the Chiefs for the Kansas City Star, and we enjoy talking Chiefs with you. There was a lot to talk about this week with the Ravens coming to Arrowhead Stadium for the home opener. Both teams 2-0. I think if this game was scheduled a couple weeks later, be in prime time, right? They would have flexed this thing into prime time. As it is, I kind of like the noon start. I'm not going to lie there. Noon start's going to be fine with me. But could be some rain, could be a weather challenge for both teams on Sunday. Listen, as we proceed here, send us your questions, your comments, and we'll try to get to as many of them as we can. I wanted to start, though, by talking about last year's Chiefs-Ravens game. I thought it was a fascinating game. And as it turns out, it's the only loss in the regular season for Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson. Did you know that he's 8-1 as a starter? Wow. The only loss was overtime here at Arrowhead to the Chiefs. A lot of interesting things happened in that game, not the least of which was Harrison Butker missing a field goal at the end of regulation that would have won it in regulation. But the Chiefs ended up winning that game. And any lessons to be learned from the Chiefs for the Chiefs in that narrow victory over Baltimore last year?
I thought it was one of Patrick Mahomes' 18 most impressive starts last year. But, in some ways, it was the most just because he got beat up. His numbers weren't that great, but he got beat up physically. Baltimore did a better job than anybody else of getting to him and hitting him and making things just difficult for him, both physically and just sort of what he saw down the field. And I also remember, you guys remember this, Andy Reid in his postgame was as effusive about Patrick after that game as any, and it was because it was really cold. I think it was like freezing or maybe even below at kickoff. That and Eric Fisher jumping on the fumble.
Yeah.
Right. That was in the fourth quarter, right?
Overtime.
On that last, or it was in overtime.
It preserved the overtime opportunity for the field goal.
That's right. I just thought that was a really impressive game. And I think that's the kind of game plan I think teams should employ against this quarterback, is to hit him. Just be physical with him as much as you can.
He was sacked 3 times in that game. There was only one other game where Mahomes was sacked more, and that was against Arizona. A really good defensive Arizona team. They didn't have a good record, but they were a terrific defense. So Mahomes was sacked 3 times. I don't know how many hits, but he was hit a lot. He ended up throwing for 3. I got it written down here on my handy card here. He was 35 of 53 for 377 and 2 touchdowns, but he also had a pick, and his passer rating was in the low 90s. So it wasn't his greatest moment, but it was the game where not only did he have the 4th and 9 completion to Tyreek Hill, but that was the no-look pass game to Demarcus Robinson.
That's
Remember
right.
that? Nobody kind of knew it at the time, right? And then the replays, you start seeing the replays, what was he looking at? Yeah. And then we discovered he had that in his arsenal.
We did, but the one that does stand out, and as Sam McDowell wrote about today, was the 4th and 9 play. And it was interesting. I did a radio show in Baltimore the other day, and they were certain that was obviously Patrick's best play, the highlight everybody talks about. And I was kind of like, I don't know. I got 8 or 9 others that I put up in there, which just sort of speaks to the array of things. But what made it interesting yesterday, as Sam wrote about, was that Patrick, he kind of backed off later, but initially he said that was his favorite play of the year.
Yeah, he said it was his favorite throw. I think it was Matt Derrick that asked him, where does that rank? And he said that was my favorite throw that I made last year. Because it's down distance situation, I think there was a minute 29 maybe left in the game. They're at their own 40, 4th and 9. And we've seen that's where he excels, though, in that have to make a play situation. It's just, I'm just going to make something happen here. But what was telling was just the way that Tyreek Hill had continued on that route the whole play. And he all of a sudden it just hits him in stride. You almost had to laugh when he makes the catch. Like, how is there somebody there, let alone it hits him on a dead sprint across the field?
I think we did laugh. I think it was like, you can't believe it again.
I think Sam stayed in his seat, though.
Getting more professional.
And two other things, Sam, you got into this. You asked a follow-up question with Patrick about whether he would have done that if it weren't that particular situation. And it is sort of, symptomatic, whatever the right word would be, of Patrick's processing system, that absolutely it all goes into this blender that he mulches out, and somehow he's just got that ingrained at the start of a play, like situation, I might do something more risky than I would normally do, but I got to do it. And the thing you wrote about this also, it made me think about this.
Getting a lot of plugs on here.
What's
It was
that?
a
A lot of
good
plugs.
story. It was-
I'm getting a lot
Read
of plugs.
Sam
on
McDowell.
here today.
Read Sam McDowell. He wants the plugs. He wants the clicks. If you do nothing else today, go to a Sam McDowell story. Any story, really, right? It
any
doesn't
of
have to be this one.
Any of them. Any of them.
We're going to see the
Stay
bump.
on
All
for
of
a
them.
while.
All of them.
The Big O Tire Facebook live bump that's going to come from this. But I remember, that was a play that illustrated anything's possible and keep the play going. But it took me back to the play in Atlanta in the preseason, when maybe it was the first time we saw in game action, even though it was preseason, like, you better just keep running because guys just going to throw it. And that was that long touchdown to Tyreek Hill at the end of the half.
What I had to remind myself of this, but that was two things. First of all, at that time, Baltimore had a 90% win percentage chance on going into that 4th and 9 play. It makes sense, right? Picking up a 4th and 9 to keep a drive alive. But the other thing was, the Chiefs that was obviously not a scoring play, and the Chiefs actually faced another 4th down, 4th and goal.
Oh, that's right.
It was 4th and 3 at the 5. They could have picked up a first down, I think. But that's when Mahomes threw a nice play call. It was to Damian Williams for the touchdown. So that's what they needed just to get into overtime. And Sam, as you mentioned, Chiefs got the ball first in overtime, got into field goal range. Mahomes gets sacked, loses a fumble. They're down to the 12. They lose the fumble, but Eric Fisher falls on it for what amounts to the game-saving recovery. And look, the Chiefs also had like I said earlier, had the chance to win it in regulation. Justin Houston made a huge play, strip sack of Lamar Jackson. They get the fumble, but Harrison Butker missed the field goal. Anyway, we're spending a lot of time on last year's game because a lot of the same players are in this thing. It was a really fascinating game for the Chiefs. The Ravens went on to make the playoffs, right? Lost to the Chargers in the wild card round. But we mentioned Eric Fisher, and with the big moment he had in that game. Eric Fisher will not have a big moment.
That's right.
On Sunday, and that's what's the concern level for the Chiefs without starting left tackle Eric Fisher, who injured his groin in practice last Friday, didn't finish practice, wasn't ruled out. Remember, right after practice, Andy didn't rule him out, and he started on Sunday at Oakland, but only, I think the participation sheet had him going only 4 plays before he came out. Cam Irving finished the game at left tackle. So what's the concern level here?
It's sort of a dichotomy because, they still scored 28 points without Eric Fisher, 28 points in one quarter without Eric Fisher. But there was some inconsistency in the offense last week. And as far as I remember, I didn't watch Irving specifically very much, but I think he kind of got blown up on the very first play. And then it was, I don't remember too much after that. And usually it stands out if you see a guy getting run over. But you guys might have been focused on it more, though. I don't remember him being a real problem. I just don't know that he's a great asset.
Right.
Yeah, I think Pro Football Focus really rated him highly in his pass blocking and not in his run blocking, which if you saw the results of the game, I mean, that's kind of how the whole team went. So, but Andy Reid said yesterday he thought he had a little bit of a rough start and then settled in afterwards. Now, Cam Irving's played everywhere on the offensive line, but he says left tackle is among his most comfortable positions. I think it's what he was drafted to be, was a left tackle. He spent a lot of training camp there, intending to be Eric Fisher's backup at that position. So among all 5, I guess if you're going to place him somewhere, he feels most comfortable at left tackle, but God, it's the most important position on the offensive line.
And he's a really good athlete, isn't he? I mean, what has been his inconsistency?
Some of it's strength, I think. It's a weird thing to say because the guy's enormously strong, right?
Right.
But on NFL offensive line standards, I think he's got his build isn't what you would typically want for that position. But you would expect him to be better with a full week of practice and, the experience of, not the experience, he's played before, but he knows he's going to play. And last week it was up in the air. I do agree, like, totally with the Pro Football Focus. He was pretty bad in the run game. I mean, he was getting thrown around a little bit, but pass protection, he was fine.
How much had he played in week one?
I don't think he played.
I
don't think he.
A
Unless
handful
he came
at best, right?
Unless it was
Yeah.
special teams.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't remember him playing in
offense,
week one.
yeah.
But he's a starter.
Yes. Well, and listen, he started 13 games last year, but at guard. And he has started, look this up too, 34 of the 57 games of his NFL career, which started in Cleveland. He was a first-round draft pick of the Browns 5 years ago. So, listen, he's not. They're not throwing a first-year player out there. Cam Irving is. He's been a productive offensive lineman as a member of the Chiefs. But are there options? What else could the Chiefs do? Andy Reid was asked that on Wednesday, what other possibilities there might be, and I guess one of them would be to move Mitchell Schwartz over to play that position. But Andy Reid didn't seem to. I think we sort of left it at, no, Irving's going to be the guy.
I think that traditionally a left tackle has sort of been the quarterback of that position group, and it probably is the most important even now, but I don't think there's a huge difference now. Like, it used to be left tackle, you got to get that spot, and right tackle was kind of the guy that couldn't play left tackle.
It was the blind side, that's what it was.
Yeah.
You were the left tackle, you were the blind side guy.
And I think with the way the offenses are now, I just don't think there's that much of a difference anymore. You don't have a drop back statue quarterback that can't, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, everything's a little bit more fluid. So I don't think, if Mitch Schwartz, and he is terrific at right tackle, I don't know why
I wouldn't mess with it.
Right.
Weaken two positions.
Exactly.
Can't you develop a game plan around running to Cam Irving's side if that's what it means? Listen, but Sam McDowell's right. The Chiefs only they have 35 rushing yards or something against Oakland, and we went over this in the post game Facebook Live on Sunday, and I think Sam Mellinger, you were the contrarian here, that, as you often are, that the Chiefs, Sam McDowell and I, before you got there, Vahe, I think we kind of determined that...
About half an hour time gap.
The closer.
Brought him in. That it would be wise for the Chiefs to establish a run, and at least a threat of a run, and that seems, not only with the injury to Fisher now, but a couple guys didn't practice yesterday, right? LaShawn McCoy and Damian Williams. So we don't know the extent of their injuries. It's an ankle for McCoy. Is it a knee for
bruise?
Knee bruise for Williams. So are they maybe just being overly cautious, or what, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, Damian Williams never intended to practice. He did sort of indicate that maybe McCoy would get in there a little bit, and he didn't. So you would think that maybe he's further along, or at least closer to being available for Sunday. But the way he answered questions, I thought there was a realistic possibility that neither of those guys will be there on Sunday, and you're looking at maybe Darrell Williams and Darwin Thompson there.
What does that mean? I mean, that's we're talking about guys that Darwin Thompson, at least he got a carry, I think, against Jacksonville. Yeah. But we're talking about guys that look a sixth round, and Darwin Thompson, a 6th-round draft pick who was very impressive in training camp. But this is a different deal here. What's the disadvantage? How big is the disadvantage if this is what the Chiefs have at running back?
I think it's significant.
I do too.
I think Darwin Thompson can play. I don't think this is, Peyton Hillis back in the day or whatever for the Chiefs. I think Darwin Thompson can play, but he's still a rookie. And, as impressive as his preseason was, and he was one of the stars of the preseason, I would worry about him, especially in this game. I mean, those are grown men. That is a really tough defense. And one of the questions about Darwin Thompson in the preseason, and look, he held up pretty well here, but it's still pass protection.
Yeah.
And if there's questions about pass protection and that's your quarterback, that's a concern.
And that team, I mean, the Baltimore Ravens disguise their pressure as probably better than anybody in the NFL, but Andy Reid sort of addressed his pass protection a little bit yesterday, and kind of reading between the lines, it seems like the issue isn't his ability to pass protect, it's his ability to recognize what's coming at him.
Right,
which
he's proven to
is
be
a
a tough
difference.
guy.
I mean,
he's
yeah,
definitely a tough nut.
Right.
And,
I mean, he's willing to stick his head in there and make the block, but recognizing it's half the battle. We saw, I mean, even in Oakland, the McCole Hardman 78-yard pass, the reason that's called back is LaShawn McCoy recognized where that pressure was coming from too late. That's why he got the holding penalty on it. So I think if those guys can't go, you will see more of Darrell Williams for the simple fact that they like him in pass protection.
It's interesting. I think that all makes sense. And I certainly wouldn't compare Darwin Thompson to Kareem Hunt, but it does remind me of the scenario where we were like, oh, what's it going to be like? They're just going to put a rookie out there. And that worked out pretty well in that opener against the Patriots. But I don't think he's quite got that kind of burst. And the real question is what kind of savvy with the burst, right? All the things you guys mentioned. So I don't know. Is there any chance they think about an emergency hire?
I don't think so, unless they think that one or both of those injuries is long term.
Right.
You know, and it doesn't sound like they do.
Correct.
Doesn't sound like either of
You
them
know,
are.
they still have Anthony Sherman too. You know, that they can use back there for pass protection, in particular. But
Let's give him the ball.
that fullback screen in Jacksonville was pretty
work.
sweet. But yeah, I think they can get through a game. You know, maybe this is probably the wrong game to try to get through against these guys, because this, you know, if the Bears aren't that good, then this is going to be the best team that the Chiefs play all season, other than the Patriots.
No, that's right. That brings up a point I want to make. But first, I want to address Sam McDowell on the LaShawn McCoy holding on the Mahomes touchdown pass that didn't count Sunday. I think the way that play unfolded, Mahomes takes the snap, kind of sidearms a pass 60 yards. He didn't have to touch. McCoy didn't need to block.
Off balance.
I mean, the ball was out a second after he got it. It was unbelievable. It was a remarkable play that didn't count.
Always err on the side of caution, though, of holding to
No doubt.
prevent the hit on Patrick
No,
Mahomes.
and you make another good point. The Ravens, both you guys did, the Ravens defense, I don't think it's as good as last year's, but it's really good. Last year they led the NFL in yards allowed, fewest yards allowed per game. I don't think this year's is good. There's some personnel differences, but it's a very, very good defense. And last year, they always brought five. They just disguised where that fifth one was coming, and that is going to be incumbent on the running back to determine, where that additional pass rusher is coming from. So,
Absolutely.
Let's talk about the quarterback for a second. Both quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes in year 3 is off to a phenomenal start. Lamar Jackson in year 2 is off to a phenomenal start. Both have 7 touchdown passes, no interceptions. Mahomes' yards are off the charts, but Jackson's kind of right behind him. Are we seeing in Lamar Jackson the type of year 1 to year 2 change or evolution that we saw with Patrick Mahomes? It's almost an unfair comparison because obviously Jackson started like 7 games last year. Mahomes didn't start at all in his rookie year. But the Lamar Jackson through 2 games this year has just been spectacular. And what kind of challenge does he present?
Well, part of the challenge is at the first time this season the Chiefs will see a guy like this, right, where it's a multifaceted threat.
The
What-
only
what-
time
I
they'll
was gonna
see
say,
a guy like this.
Is that- yeah, I guess it is, and that speaks a little bit to his own unique talent,
great,
right?
yeah.
He's certainly more refined than last year, which makes him more of a complicated threat because I think you have to defend the pass a little better and a little differently this year. I don't remember his numbers last year against the Chiefs, but it struck me that his passing was sort of inconsistent.
I think he had 150 passing yards, and he rushed for about 65 or 70.
Yeah.
I think it was the first time he
gonna
was
look this up.
held under 100 yards rushing, though.
Is
maybe
that
the
right?
only
Yeah.
time in the regular season last year where he was held under 100 rushing.
But their team changed when he became the starter and Joe Flacco went to the
Absolutely.
bench.
I'm looking this up unless you know it. How many starts was that for him last year?
This is third or
It
fourth?
was his
third?
4th start
was his
against the
4th start,
Chiefs.
okay.
Was his 4th start. So he had won his first 3,
Yeah.
and then damn near won game 4, which was his biggest challenge.
The point that I keep coming back to on him, though, 4th start, but still, they did that thing on the fly. And I don't know that there's 2 more different quarterbacks in the league than Joe Flacco and Lamar Jackson. And they had to revamp. And if I remember right, that Baltimore was coming off a bye. I think that's
When they played the Chiefs?
I think that's right.
Okay.
And maybe it was a week before. But anyway, they had totally overhauled everything for Lamar Jackson. And doing that on I know John Harbaugh's a really good coach, but that is still a challenge. And it makes sense that not just Lamar Jackson's going to be a better player, but the system is a better fit for him now with a full offseason and, whatever that was, 7 games last year to kind of see what he is. He's not, he's a very different quarterback than Mahomes. He's faster, way faster, probably a little bit, better athlete in some ways. Mahomes is agile, but more behind the line of scrimmage. But he can throw it. I mean, he's got, not Mahomes distance, but he's got distance.
Right. And he's got accuracy this year.
Yes.
He's over 70%.
Yeah. He's not like a pinpoint, sniper accuracy, but, the stories of him out of the draft about like he's got to play receiver or whatever because he's too inaccurate just look so stupid, as they deserve to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, the opener, the Ravens beat the Dolphins 59-10, and of course that's going to be a name your score against the Dolphins every week. But in the second game against the Arizona Cardinals, which still have a pretty decent defense, we talked about this after the game on Sunday. Jackson became first player in NFL history to whatever those benchmarks are.
Regular season, I guess.
Regular season, 120 yards rushing, and I think it was 270 passing. So. In a game that the Ravens never trailed, but had to hold off the Cardinals at the end, he was tremendous. And look, this is a team now that with Mark Ingram in the backfield and Hollywood Brown as their speedy wide receiver threat, Andrews the tight end, which got me thinking: how did Oklahoma not win the national championship in 2017 with Andrews, with Hollywood Brown, with Baker Mayfield as a quarterback, Kyler Murray coming off the bench, as your backup quarterback? A hell of a team for Oklahoma. That's the team that lost to Georgia, I think, in the Rose Bowl. So, that's quite a challenge for the Chiefs defense. The biggest challenge I get, for the Chiefs defense. This is not Gardner Minshew, and it's not Derek Carr.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson's a different kind of guy.
Yeah, and Brown, it's probably too early to say this, but say it definitively anyway, but he might be the best receiver that they've faced so far. Maybe the best deep threat, if not the best overall. And, that could be a problem. I think Juan Thornhill has shown up really well and could be, certainly more of a deterrent to a player like Hollywood Brown than the Chiefs had available last year. But still, that could be a problem.
I wonder if Juan Thornhill's not in for a little spy action on Sunday.
Got to worry about that too, yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, just right. One quick point. I think the Chiefs. We've been talking a lot about Lamar Jackson, his speed, and what he does. The pressure, the stress he puts on our defense. I do think the Chiefs now have a little bit more speed, especially at linebacker, and they're better equipped to deal with that than they would last year. I'm not saying they're going to shut them down by any stretch, but they're better equipped to handle that than they would have been last year.
Absolutely.
To me, what stands out about that Ravens game last year that I wonder if it'll carry over was they sort of gave that blueprint that we saw the Patriots implement in the playoffs as far as taking a lot of time off the clock on offense to keep the Chiefs' offense off the field, waiting till 2 and 1 second on the play clock to snap the ball. And the Chiefs' offense spent a lot of that game on the sideline because of it. I wonder if they're confident enough in Lamar Jackson now to speed that up a little bit, or if that's still going to be the game plan for him on Sunday.
The Ravens had the ball for 37 minutes last week against the Cardinals.
Yeah.
So and won a 6-point game.
There's not a lot of stoppages in their offense. You just said, Lamar Jackson's completing over 70%, and they run the ball a lot, whether it's with him or Ingram, or they've got a couple other guys they're mixing in the backfield as well.
Okay.
It's fun. Well, it just making me think of this when Sam did his preseason predictions. This was before you saw how really improved Baltimore is. You thought this might be an upset, and I wonder if you feel stronger about it now, or.
Preseason predictions are very important and should be taken seriously.
All right,
and
not
so,
let that go.
Well, I think people go to Vegas on those.
You meant it when you wrote it, didn't you?
So
Okay,
I got to
right.
stick with it, I guess.
Well, we'll see. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, sorry,
we'll see
I'm jumping the gun.
No, that's okay. We'll see how. See if
Tiger
Sam has
has
the
not
courage
met
of
the
his
rubber.
convictions when we get to that. Let's talk about Patrick Mahomes for a second. We should never not talk about Patrick Mahomes on one of these occasions. But I'll throw this little stat out for you. Chiefs beat the Ravens, and they beat the Chargers in Week 1 last season. And those were the 2 victories that a Patrick Mahomes-led team had over playoff teams that went to the playoffs last year. There were 3 or 4 I can't remember. Did the Seahawks make the playoffs? Because all the other teams that beat him made the playoffs last year, right? The Patriots, the Rams.
Yeah, Seattle got it.
in
Didn't they
LA.
play that crazy game against the Cowboys?
That's
in the
right. That's
playoffs
right.
last
So
year?
that's right. The Cowboys, or the Seahawks lost to the Cowboys. So, 2-4 against playoff teams last year, and one of those was an overtime win at home against the Ravens. So, of course, he was 1-1 in the playoffs. But this is an opportunity, I think, for Patrick Mahomes to have, kind of take a big leadership role and put his team in a position to have an impressive performance against a team now that we think is going to be a playoff team, right? Don't we think the Ravens, at least coming out of that division now, are going to be a playoff team?
Yeah.
So, look, it's not. I'm not saying the Chiefs didn't lose other games last year to playoff teams because of Mahomes, but now I kind of see him as a guy that needs to win games for the Chiefs against good competition.
You found the weakness in his resume.
It's the only place where the dash has a bigger number on the right than the left.
All this investigative work, we finally found the weakness in his resume. He hasn't beaten enough playoff teams.
Well, and you get to play 5, 6 every year. And listen, if you finish first like the Chiefs have done the last 3 years, that you get 3 automatic, first place winners on your. That's why they're playing the Ravens this year, is because the Ravens won the AFC North last year. So
This is first chance at a team
don't
that's
you
going to
think?
make the
Right,
playoffs
I was going to say
right?
that too. We thought maybe Jacksonville going into the season had a chance to win that, but I don't know without Foles now. But I
I mean, and now look, like obviously, when they lose 54-51 or whatever in LA, even though Pat did have that was his worst interception of the season last year
at the end.
In LA. But I mean, Baltimore remains the only team to hold Patrick Mahomes under 26 points in regulation.
That's right.
They got that going for them.
That's right. That's right. If that game didn't go to overtime, there wouldn't be a streak.
That's right. It'd be 24.
Right. That's right. Okay, let's good time for our picks for when the rubber meets the road. This is our this is part where we kind of identify a player that we project to stand out on Sunday, or at least someone who we think the Chiefs need to stand out on Sunday for a victory over Baltimore. Sam McDowell, we'll start with you. Give us your player for when the rubber meets the road.
I think that, and I guess I'm kind of questioning what kind of game he does have, but I think the key player for them on Sunday is going to be Anthony Hitchens because of the way that the Ravens do play action disguise. He's going to have a lot of thinking to do on the field on Sunday. So to me, how good their defense performs, how well they're able to stop Lamar Jackson comes down to what kind of game Anthony Hitchens has. And he's been better these first 2 games than what we saw last year in 2018.
For sure. Melly, what you got?
I'm kind of like, for the rest of the season, I don't know if I should say this definitively, but I don't want to pick offensive players. Right? Like, I feel like they're going to do what they do, So Juan Thornhill is going to be my guy. I hadn't thought about what you just mentioned a couple minutes ago about him possibly being a spy. I was thinking more of being that center fielder to take away some of what Marquise Brown and Lamar Jackson can do in that game. I think he's shown up really well, and I don't know if this is too much to expect. It's the biggest game that they're going to play maybe until the Patriots. I mean, these things are hard to project.
Looming is the best opponent.
Yeah. And I mean, he can do a lot for that defense to take away big plays from the Ravens.
Okay. Vahe,
I think
you can go offense. Don't feel
No, I'm
constricted
gonna
Just don't take the quarterback.
Keep away from the offense. I mean, I think we should always start with the default is Patrick Mahomes,
Right.
except for we know roughly how he's going to perform, right? I mean, we haven't seen him have a bad game yet. I mean, it's funny we think of that Rams game, that interception, and
threw
they
for
did score 51.
478.
And he did
6 touchdowns.
He did all right. He was all right.
Couldn't win.
Loser. But I'll say Frank Clark, just because I'm ready to see more out of him, and I think we need to see some pressure, some contain, some dynamic plays from him. We saw a play or two, I think, in the opener. I mean, the interception, and did he have a sack in the opener?
I don't think he's had a sack yet.
He hasn't had a pressure.
It was a pressure. It was
No,
a
he
hurry.
has not.
He hasn't even had a
Pressure.
pressure. Not even a hurry. Not a pressure. So I think we need to see more out of him, and this would be a good game for him to do it.
It would be a good game for him to do it. I was going to go with Frank Clark, but I'll go on the other side and say Alex Okafor. I just think the defensive ends are going to be really important in this game. It's a contained game, and now you've got a quarterback that can get outside and create havoc that way. And so I just think it's more responsibility on the defensive end. So who is this week's Sammy Watkins / DeMarcus Robinson / who? What I mean, just the fact that they've had 2 monster games from receivers not named Tyreek Hill. We've gone this whole show without mentioning Tyreek Hill is not going to be available. He was huge against the Ravens last year. He was 8 for 139.
Yeah, he was hobbled on that game, too.
Yeah,
if I
and
remember
that's right. Remember, he was hobbling out of bounds all the time. So
He got hobbled twice. He hurt his hand. He hurt
yes,
his
and
foot.
his foot. Right. It was yes, and so after the season, when he had some minor surgery on it, I think we went back. It was the Baltimore game where it happened. So they've managed okay without Tyreek Hill. Can we continue to expect that?
I think we can, and I think it's going to be Sam McDowell's guy, McCole Hardman. I think one of the things that happened in the game Sunday was there was a little bit of a I don't know, not rite of passage exactly, but something had happened there with Mahomes really making a point to Hardman that he can't worry about too much finesse. I mean, you can't sacrifice speed and precision for some finesse. In this case, I think the term Patrick used was he gave a little more of a nod on a fake before he made that sideline cut on the first series.
Right.
And it showed up in a few other plays later that the urgency was there, the kind of understanding. And look, it's going to be a long-term process for a rookie guy in Andy's offense, but they really did connect for 2 touchdowns, and one just got nullified for the penalty. So I think he's ready to make a step.
Well, I think part of that step this week is going to be, I think the technical term is jet sweepage. I think we're going to see a little bit more of that because we haven't seen much of that. But that's sort of one of the gifts of Tyreek Hill is that movement in the backfield and in motion, and I think that's just part of a kind of a process for a player like McCole Hardman. You just don't come out of the gates doing that. But I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some more of that because I do think against this defense, deception is important, don't you think?
Yep, and speed.
Speed and deception.
And we would be, you make a good point, but like we would be talking about McCole Hardman in that almost DeMarcus Robinson way if that touchdown counted. I mean, that would have been 2 touchdowns. It would have been 70 more yards or whatever. I mean, and he made the play. You know, it was a good call. It was a hold.
Right.
McCoy got his money's worth, but
yeah.
I mean, that didn't affect what Hardman was doing.
Did you guys see the Earl Thomas quote this week?
Yeah.
The safety. Luckily, the Ravens have me playing free safety. I plan on eliminating all the big plays.
There you go.
So I don't even know what we're doing talking about this game. It's done. Earl Thomas has spoken. So, hey, the guy's great. He's a great
Hall of
football
Famer.
player. Absolutely. But let's see. Kyler Murray last week wrote this down as well, 25 of 40 for 349 in his 3rd NFL game.
Were there any big plays?
A couple.
Yeah.
There were a couple. But I don't, hats off to Earl Thomas if he can prevent what we've seen this season from the Chiefs. But hey, maybe that's the post-game story, right?
Yeah.
Maybe Earl Thomas did what he said what he was going to do. So,
I sure like the idea of just having it in you to say, luckily we have me.
Yeah.
I like that, right?
Yeah.
Hey, this was a guy the Chiefs really wanted
Oh my
last
God,
year.
twice.
Yeah.
Then in the offseason. He's earned the right to
Absolutely.
have some cocky quotes. Good for him.
And speaking of which, this is tonight's NFL game is one that I wouldn't really be paying much attention to. Titans Jaguars, but maybe paying a little more attention to that one tonight, don't you think? Sam, you wrote a lot about this week.
Yeah. Did you see? I think it was Adam Schefter, but I wouldn't swear to that. Had a tweet about NFL GM trial balloon to the NFL about whether Jalen Ramsey could play Sunday if they traded him.
Play Thursday and Sunday.
We're not allowed to,
What is
correct?
that? Yeah, apparently that's.
In case you could only
that's
play one game a week.
Yeah,
You
'cause-
could just toss them across the league every week. You're getting 35 games this year.
and I love that conversation. Like, how much do we care about player safety, or like, or pretending that we care? He's out there. He is out there. I still don't know. I think there have been some talks, not just with the Chiefs, but other teams around the league. But it's hard to tell. Like, I think people are just using each other. There's a lot of posturing going on right now. And the trade deadline is it week 9?
Yeah, it's after week 8. It's like the Tuesday after week 8.
After week 8. So I mean, we got a lot of time for posturing.
But Friday could be,
Yeah.
to hear Jalen Ramsey this week, one out. And, look, it's working in Miami. Those guys are swimming out of that place. So I'll be paying attention to the Jaguars tonight and looking, watching the news tomorrow and trying to figure out if that's when we might see Jalen Ramsey on the move. I heard the Eagles are a team that are a possibility.
Yeah.
Yep. The Ravens were talking about it.
Somebody reported the Cardinals looked into it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's pick this game. Chiefs. Both teams bidding to go 3-0. And so, Vahe, let's start with you. Chiefs Ravens Sunday noon rain possibly. Who wins?
Chiefs win. I feel like we're starting to sound like that Saturday Night Live skit with the Bears. Chiefs.
Yeah, but they ate better. I mean, look, they had that sausage table in front of them.
We can do something about that. So I think sort of in the 27-20 mode. Tough game. But I think they'll keep their 26+ streak alive, and I think they'll fend them off.
Chiefs are a 6.5-point favorite, I think. In this
It
game.
got bet down a little bit.
Has it come down?
I thought it was like 7 or 7.5.
Okay.
It opened at 6.5.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's go with Sam McDowell. What do you got?
Pretty similar to Vahe. I do think the Chiefs win, but I think this is going to be their toughest home game of the year. When you look at their home schedule, I think if they lose, it might be this game. But probably 27-24, I would say Chiefs. I think it's going to be close throughout.
Yeah, and as Vahe mentioned earlier, Sam, this was in August, maybe even late July. You planted the flag.
Nothing
on
has
this
changed
game.
since then.
That's right. Wow.
But listen, I thought you made the pick. Sam picked the Ravens because he went down the schedule, put W's and L's by every opponent, and I thought your rationale was solid, and it makes sense. To me, it still makes sense. This is absolutely a capable team in Baltimore.
Yeah, just I feel like it's a 13-3 team, so you try to find 3, and this is the one that makes the most sense to me. I think a lot of what the Ravens do well matches up well for them against what the Chiefs don't do well. And, some of that, we talked about the speed at linebacker is better this year with the Chiefs, much better. So it's not quite what it was last year, but I still think Lamar Jackson is a unique problem that the Chiefs haven't faced and aren't likely to face. And this is a much better Lamar Jackson than they faced last year. They didn't have Marquise Brown. The defense, like you said, may not be quite as good, but that's still a physical, grown man, gonna hit you and not apologize for it kind of defense. This is a really dangerous game, and I put a lot of thought and study and everything else into it, so I'm going to stick with the Ravens. Whatever score I put,
Okay,
I'll just stick with
go
it.
with it. Okay.
Quick question, if I may.
Sure.
If you didn't have that out there and you were starting over, there was no continuum here.
I still
Same
think I
thing?
would. Yeah. They're not going to go 16-0. I don't think they're going to lose a game at home. And I'm kind of past picking, little upsets that you might not think about, because I think Andy Reid has proven, especially over the last few years, they don't have those games where they just lose to a bad team. Those are really very much the exception.
Right. And we can think of some of those, with Alex Smith, the quarterback, and not because of Alex Smith,
Sure.
but the Titans coming in with the suck-up field goal on the frozen turf that year. It seems like there was one a year like that you. The Bears, the game that Jamal Charles got hurt. They're just how did they lose that game? You haven't seen that with Mahomes as the starter. How did they lose that game?
Yeah, and even the year before, maybe I'm forgetting now. It's been a couple years, but I don't think they had a game like that.
Last year.
Yeah, just a dud against a team that they should have smacked. I don't remember that. But so anyway, I feel like this is a matchup that. The Ravens have to feel like they can do some things against the Chiefs.
And I just thought about that stretch they had a couple years ago with the Giants, the Jets, the Bills. They were just awful for about a month and a half.
Yeah.
But with 1-5, you just can't see that happening.
He changes everything.
And those are bad teams. This is a good Ravens team. I'm going 27-23 Chiefs. Another close game. I don't think anybody gets more than a 2-score lead in this one. It's just the Ravens are that good. And I think this is a series where we're going to see these teams play every year and sometimes twice a year, because I think the Ravens are about to take over that division the way they had it a few years ago.
That's a good point.
And it's not going to be Chiefs-Steelers. It's going to be Chiefs-Ravens and Chiefs-Patriots and Patriots-Ravens. And, I just think that's what we're going to see going forward for the next few years with guys like Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes being, at the top level of quarterback play.
That'd be fun.
In the NFL. It would be fun because, and we like going to Baltimore.
That's right.
It's a great city. So, all right, that'll do it for us. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thanks to Sam, and Vahe for being here. Thanks so much to Beth for running the show. And we will see you again next Thursday from a Big O Tires in Kansas City.